Joining us now from California is Kevin Pina. He's a filmmaker and the founding editor of the Haitian Information Project. Here with us in our Washington, D.C. studio is Yves Point-du-Jour. He's the host of the Haitian radio program Konbit Lakay. And from the state of Virginia here in the United States, we're joined by Robert Fatton via Skype. He's a Haiti expert at the University of Virginia. Gentlemen, thanks to all of you for joining us. Yves, let me start with you. Not so long ago, Haiti held an election in August, the legislative election at that time. That was an election that was marred by a lot of violence. There were a lot of irregularities. Turnout was less than a fifth, 18%. But what we're hearing about this election on Sunday was that it was orderly, or as our correspondent said, without serious incident. What's changed?
On the surface, yes, it was orderly. But what happened in between, that's the most important thing. Because there were a lot of irregularities in that election yesterday, and also on what they were doing to stuff the ballot on behalf of the candidate for the current president political party.
But we don't know that yet, do we?
We didn't know about this. That was most interesting, because I think they were pressured to make it peaceful. Remember, the chief of police, the prime minister, they came here to Washington. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry went to Haiti. So they were pressured to make it peaceful. But at the same time, they used other strategies to stuff the ballots. And this is the most important part. And this is that election, yes, it was done without violence, but at the same time, it was not a democratic, free and fair election. Right. And the results will not be democratic.
Well, we don't know that yet, do we?
I can guarantee you that the result will not be democratic, because right now, all the what they call the results of the local polling precincts, they go to a center. They call it the tabulation center. But the Haitian people, you know how they call it? The tribulation center, because this is where the whole thing is done. This is where they fix up the numbers, they cook up the numbers, and this is where they give you the results based on what the international community wants.
Okay, let me go to Kevin in California. Kevin, Haiti suffered a devastating earthquake, as I mentioned at the outset of the show, in 2010. It leveled the country. I mean, it's remarkable that a country which is struggling to get back on its feet is actually having an election right now, isn't it?
Well, I think what's more remarkable is the glaring omission that your reporter made, which is that one of the major candidates is a miracle in herself, and that's Maurice Narcisse of the Famille Lavalas party. Given that this party was the victim of an attempt to destroy it wholesale after the 2004 coup, in which Aristide was kidnapped and forced onto a plane and unceremoniously flown to Bangui in the Central African Republic. The fact that there were thousands of people who were murdered in the streets by the Police Nationale d'Haïti, the fact that the United Nations itself has been accused of committing massacres against partisans of Famille Lavalas between 2004 and 2006, and that, of course, we know the well-known accusations against Aristide of drug trafficking, all of which has been part of a campaign of character assassination. The fact that this party has emerged again, yet again, in elections as a serious contender is a miracle in and of itself. We even know that the Voice of America this morning, less than 12 hours ago, actually said that the major contenders in this race are going to be Jude Celestin and Maurice Narcisse. Given that, I think that I also want to echo what Jean-Yves said, which is that there were many irregularities that were registered yesterday. We know that one of the greatest ones was the fact that there was a huge discrepancy between the voter lists that were outside of polling stations and the lists that were inside of polling stations. Whereas people would go to a particular polling station where they knew they were supposed to vote because their name appeared outside of it, when they would go inside, they were not on the official register. There were thousands of people who lined up to vote yesterday who were unable to participate, who were unable to cast their democratic ballot yesterday in Haiti's elections.
Robert, voters had to make their choice from 54 candidates. That's a long list in any election, in any country, in any part of the world. How does the system work in Haiti? 54 candidates.
Well, you do have 54 candidates, but you have very few really important candidates. And I think in this election, you had 4 candidates who were at the top. One was the candidate supported by Martelly, that's Jovenel Moïse. The second one was Jude Célestin, who was the candidate of Préval in the previous election, but he was discarded to a large extent by the international community, and this is how Martelly became president. The third candidate has been mentioned, and that's Maurice Narcisse of Famille-Lavalas. And what is quite important about Maurice Narcisse is that she got the support of Aristide, and Aristide, for the first time in a long while, came out supporting her. And this is quite significant. It is going to be very interesting to see if Maurice Narcisse can carry that support to victory. And the final candidate, the fourth major candidate, I think, is Maurice Jean-Charles, who is from Petite-Dessaline. And Maurice Jean-Charles at one point was in Lavalas, but there were problems, and he ultimately left Lavalas to create his own party. And from what I'm hearing in Haiti, it looks like the great surprise for some people is Maurice Narcisse, although the counting, no one knows when it's going to be official and how poorly or correctly it's going to be done. And the other candidate might be actually Jovenel Moïse. So that would be a very interesting turnabout, and it would look like, if that holds, that there would be a serious polarization in Haiti, because Maurice Narcisse, representing Famille-Lavalas, is, if you wish, the populist left, and then on the right, you would have Jovenel Moïse. So you might have a very tough and polarizing election, and that is going to be really the issue. Because the election yesterday was from if you compare it to the election of August 9th, the legislative election was much better. But the important election is going to be the second round and how the vote is counted.
Okay. Jean-Yves, I want to ask you a bit more about the conduct of the election. You know, in the run-up to the election, some of the campaign rallies were plagued by violence. There was pre-election violence. Do we know what the security situation was like on election day on Sunday? And who was in charge of security? Was it the Police Nationale, or was it the UN, or was it a combination of both?
A combination of both. Yeah. The police, the national police, the national Haitian police, and MINUSTA, the UN, which MINUSTA did not take part in the first round on August 9th. Yeah. And they decided, for some reason that nobody knows, to be involved in yesterday's vote. Now, yes, in terms of security, it was, you know, better, that they did a better job in terms of providing security, and they even caught some guys who were trying to vote twice, you know. And also, for example, in the town of Pt2, 17 guys were locked up. They came there they bought them from Port-au-Prince, and they come to create, you know, problems and to vote twice, or, you know, to spoil the vote. And they were arrested. And they did a much better job. But at the same time, what to understand regarding the vote, now we keep talking about Jovenel Moïse. Jovenel Moïse, we have to understand that. Jovenel Moïse was a nobody in Haiti. He got his money.
He's now one of the leading candidates, right?
Yeah, he got his money from Pt2. They got $5 million from Pt2 fund, from Martelly.
This is an oil company.
No, Pt2 is the oil company that is that arrangement that Venezuela had with Haiti, and they use portion of that money, you know, for development. Okay. But he got that money. But Jovenel Moïse took that $5 million. They went to the north, and by the way, they said he's an associated partner with Martelly. They said it's Martelly's business, and Martelly is trying to push this guy with the business sector, trying to protect his arrears, his back, because he knows what he was doing.
Okay.
But what I want to get at, excuse me 1 minute, is the fact that 4 weeks ago, a document came out with 12 to 15 points, and one of them was creating bogus polls to make it look like Jovenel Moïse is popular.
Right.
And they had some first polls in Haiti by bridge. They're trying to bring him up closer to Gilles Celestin. Right. And then they had this guy, Eduardo Gamarra from FIU, making another poll saying that Jovenel is ahead. All those bogus polls were the work of some company called Esto Sola, a Spanish firm hired to promote this guy and to make it look like he was popular, like he was a competitor in the race.
All right, Kevin, what is your feeling on this? Were these polls marked by widespread corruption? Were they bogus polls?
Well, certainly there are questionable polls. The Brides polls, which Jean-Yves was referring to, is probably the least credible of polls. But there were other polls that have been taken that were a little more credible. One which, in fact, showed that Maurice Narcisse was in the lead by 35%, which came out 2 weeks prior to the election. I think that there are serious questions about Jovenel Moïse's candidacy. Certainly, we saw that most of the incidents of the attempt to manipulate the vote that occurred yesterday were done on behalf of the PHTK party, the PHTK party, which is the ruling party of Michel Martelly, on Jovenel Moïse's behalf. But I also have to say that, you know, a lot of people are congratulating the Police Nationale d'Haïti, the national police, for doing their job yesterday. And for me, I'm circumspect about it because what it means is that in many ways, that proves their complicity in the fraudulence of August the 9th. They did nothing to stop the fraudulent behavior, to stop the violence of the parliamentary elections on August the 9th. They did not nearly as much as they could have, but they did more yesterday. But to me, the fact that they're being congratulated today makes me truly circumspect, given that they were completely absent on August the 9th. And we know that those were elections that in some ways count more than the presidential elections. That's Haiti's parliamentary elections. That's the Senate and the lower chamber of the House. These are the real lawmakers of that country. And the fact that those elections are so marred by fraudulent behavior, by violence, by voter suppression, raises serious questions about the entire process, but certainly about the role of the Police Nationale d'Haïti on that day.